Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, YouTube. I am trying to make a video on what it is to be a first-time pig farmer because it's hard to do. Well, it's not hard to do. It's actually pretty easy. But there's some things you're going to want to know up front. So these are our 10 Yorks and Burks, and I don't even know what those brown guys are. That's Grunty and Grunty Jr. Long story short here, COVID happened. Grocery store shelves went, well, they went a lot thinner, and we said, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to stand on our own. So we put all of our equity from the housing increase into gardens and being self-sustaining. We thought if we're going to carry that debt, we're at least going to survive with it rather than die. So we also got 10 pigs. Pigs are just like the internet says, they're actually pretty easy. So I got a whole bunch of stuff to tell you about them, if they'll leave me alone. I think they're thirsty. First, when you go to order your pigs, at least in Canada, make sure they got tags. Ask someone about tags. If they don't have tags, know that you have to get tags. Okay, that's if you're going to transport them, sell them, or do anything like that. If you just got a couple coming to your house because you're going to slaughter them, that's fine. When you get them, plan for a spot. They're little. See my fence here? More on that later, but you see how low it is to the ground? Little Grunty, piglet, won't have a hard time slipping under that. So this was laid out for when these guys came in here at about 80 pounds, and it worked perfect. Some of our highest areas, like right here, 8 to 10 inches. And there's a few, but you don't have to worry about it too much because they're curious, they use their nose and they get zapped. So if you are going to bring juniors into something like this, the advice is put up ribbon, electrical ribbon, make it smaller, lower, and give them a way tinier space. So anyways, we got them into our old chicken coop, and that didn't work out well. Tried to get them up in the coop, had a ramp. They were afraid of a ramp, they didn't understand it yet. And that made it hard. Grunty over there, he was the first one to figure it out. He was the leader of it all. He's our smartest pig, he's our calmest, nicest pig. He's an uncastrated boar, and the guy is awesome. This is sister, she's a little bit of a stoner. She's one of the few that plays with her, like on her own, like chasing stuff and things. Anyways, here's Grunty. Hey Grunty, what's up buddy? So, make sure you have enough space, because when we got them in there, I had to chase them by hand, grab them by the hind legs. They're fast, they're squirrely, just to get them into their little house at night, because that's where the hay was. It was still cold. This is Sudbury, Ontario, still cold up in November, and that made it, oh boy, November, jeez, what am I talking about? All I have is November on my brain. That was May when we got them. So there were some cold nights. They don't have the fat or anything, right? So it didn't work out the best for them. Hey grunts. Hey grunts. We're buddies. So that was a lot of work, almost an hour every night. We just simply weren't set up for it, and that made it hard. Later, when I got this thing built, so this is 10 by 16, 2 by 6 floor joists, doubled on 24s with a raw 2 by 6 decking, and then 24-inch 2 by 4 studding. I insulated in between my purlins just in case future use. Steel roof. The roof is 16 feet, so I have enough overhang to keep the food pails dry. You can see the wet line from the rain we just got. That's good. I put it on skis, so triple 2 by 10, 2 by 8 skis. And then what I did is I recessed steel flat bar into the floor joist so that when I go to tow this, I don't actually collapse the building. I went a little bit much. I flashed all the corners, fascia and stuff. I don't know, I like building things, so that's kind of cool. You notice we don't have water collection. That'd be smart, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But when we got out here, I had to move these guys. Fortunately, my dad was in town. That was a huge help, but it was a ton of work. We tried roping them. That didn't work out. It stresses them out. You can pull them, like if you're gonna shoot one or whatever, or slaughter and harvest, I guess, but you're still upping their stress. Not the best idea. So anyways, what you want to do is you want to push them And inside of your pig herd or whatever, you'll have a leader. You'll have a smart one, ones that the other ones trust and will follow. It's like anything else. And inside of that, you want to isolate that pig and push with that pig and get him moving. Fuck off. So once we did that and we got the leader moving, the rest just followed. It was really no problem at all. You don't want to be chasing, you don't want to be pushing. We held up pallets to make ourselves bigger, and that really worked because the pigs don't really perceive like the amount of effort it is to move or destroy things, so you can like falsely inflate yourself to look bigger. But ultimately, set yourself up with a corral, find a way to push them and isolate the leader, and the rest will be a lot more cooperative for you. Food and water, not bad when they're little, okay? So these guys are 10 pigs, mostly 200 plus pounds. This setup over here, we were using a barrel when we had our like our hose, our exterior faucet on. You're gonna spend a lot of money in city water unless you're on a well doing that. Make sure you get yourself set up with a point or an alternate source of water that you don't really pay for. They muddy the watering bins. They're pigs, they're dirty, they're clean. Like, they won't shit where they sleep, but they will everywhere else. So, and they'll fight for the water, and their feet will be dirty. It's not how to do it. So you get these little watering tabs almost everywhere. They work better on a flat wall. Flat-walled container, kind of like the tote that's on my tractor right now, which is what we'll be doing next year. They will work on this, don't get me wrong. Drill a tight hole, use thread tape, like squish your seals well, because they're also rough on it. I made them a little bit elevated. I split a pallet in half, and that worked out pretty well for this year. Ultimately, I would just switch to that for next year, and I'd have 2 of them. Now the thing is with us is we bought all this stuff brand new. We didn't want some chemical contaminated water bins or something like that, so it costs. Like CAD, that one was $5.70. These barrels are $100. So you're getting into it, right? That building, lumber increases and stuff, that cost me just over $5 grand with a steel roof and everything. Now I can use that for a lot of things. So it's almost a 2-year rate of return at that point. But when they're little, these 2 50-gallon drums, which is 40% of filling a tote, which is a cubic meter, that lasted them like a week, and I was laughing. But now they're big, and it's like 2.5 days. Like, you can see the water line in that one's pretty low. This is 2 days ago, so if you get a rainstorm or something, you're moving a lot of water, and that's kind of something I regret, which is why I would get 2 of those. So you imagine having 10 pigs, I would have 2.5 times their ultimate growth 2-day capacity, so a week out of one of those at the end of their growth period, which is probably 2 weeks earlier in the year. Which then brings us to feed. So if you want to do a gravity feeder, I think that's really cool. We had some moisture issues and some stuff like that, which spoiled a lot of feed. So if you put a lot in one place, you better get ready for some challenges. And maybe not. Maybe you're in a super arid region, and that's totally fine. Like I said, we're in Sudbury, Ontario. That didn't work out the best for us. We lost a bunch of feed. So coming out and dumping some bags in every few days at least lets you monitor lots of air movement, and that feed's going to be healthy. Now, I really don't have an answer for that. Maybe the internet does. I could tell you that I looked at designing and having my own gravity feeders fabbed up out of aluminum or steel. It was cost prohibitive. So I work as an engineer, and I have friends who are fabricators. You might be able to pull that off better than I did, but if you're going to do one out of wood, that would probably work out okay. They will be aggressive when they're hungry, so they'll push to feed. So like if you keep those 2 bins full, which is going to cost you more in feed, you'll get more equal growth out of all your pigs. You look at September here. This guy's massive, or girl, whatever it is. And then this is Grunty Jr. He's our littlest one. If I could get both those guys in the same shot, these are not equivalent sized pigs. So the biggest one's going to push and he's going to eat the most. And so, okay, well, what's the driver for not feeding them non-stop? Well, part of it is saving money. Okay, the other part of it is maybe you want them to do some work for you. So this is a forest farm. We don't have fields, and we're not beside our house or anything. So what I've done is I've cleared a trail, okay, in a perimeter. I've used a lot of trees as posts, and then I've installed fiberglass where I need to pull it down or up to deal with the undulations in the forest floor. And they went to town. Like, they did a lot of work. It's kind of hard to put a value to it, because if I were to take a minimum wage laborer and brush saw and stuff and ask him to clear this, it'd probably take him like 3 days, you know? But he would have rooted nothing and would have fertilized nothing. So there's pros to that. This was all like dense forest, by the way. So I'm really happy with the work they did. And I think if they were in here all year, they would have done an even better job. Just beyond this sort of green area, they did this kind of clear a field thing again too, which is greatly appreciated, because I've spent a lot of hours clearing and breaking land. So I think that's really cool. I like that they worked. I'd like to put goats in this pasture next year, move pigs over to the next one, cycle them, and then not have to run a brusher or like rent a brusher on an excavator or something just to break new land. You know, it is what it is. There's lots of different ways to do that, and if you play out the economics and time, you'll find your own way. Everybody knows somebody. But around here, that's what I figure. So, cooling ponds. We have 8 inches of topsoil, pretty much like the rest of the world, and then we have clay. So clay is just like a natural pool liner. So I got one here, one on the other side, and I showed you that other one earlier. They got to stay cool. Okay, they're particular and physiologically fussy animals. Although pretty well gridded, temperatures really get them, and lack of water supply. So if they're dehydrated, that's bad, and if they can't stay cool, that's bad. Their shit will start to change form and stuff, no different than ours, and they get really unhappy. And well, and you can kill them too, and that's not only a bad way to treat your animals, but obviously bad for the economics of your farm. So with us, I never added water here. Natural summer rainwater always kept this one deep. The clay leaves a nice film on the pigs, which helps them deflect that heat, kind of like sunscreen. And they were happy here all year. It was awesome. So I guess what I'd say is, you know, if you could, call your local aggregate supply and find out what it is for a half truck of clay, dig a hole, and make a naturally lined pool. That would be a smart thing to do. I'm gonna circle into kids for a second. Our kids love the pigs. They're not allowed in here. For one, electric fence. Two, if we missed a couple days and the kids think it's safe to come in, these guys get really pushy. You can push on them. You can do a lot of things to a pig. They don't really leave you alone. So, big cautionary note to say, these guys are a ton of fun when they're happy, like a sober person, but when they get drunk with hunger, just be careful what you're doing and how many are around. And I'm sure a lot of people will applaud that if they've seen it and witnessed it. This fence line worked out really well. We've got it on a solar charger, right? Because obviously we're remote back here. We oversize it. Everyone says to oversize it. This unit's good for 100 acres. Like, there's no grass touching it, and it's a perfect scenario. We have it on 1 acre. It produces over 9,900 volts on the high setting per shock, which I take in the hand all the time. There's the high-low there. It has a green check function light, and obviously a little solar panel. It's not comfortable, but like you can still hand fix your fence, especially if you're wearing leather gloves. Fold them in half maybe. That actually got me through the last repair awkwardly, but I didn't take any shocks. I energized both sides. So rather than just doing like a one continuous loop to ground, I energized both so that if it does ground out, I'm still functional. And what that also allowed me to do was to put in sort of a faux pas gate. So you're not supposed to use these hooks when you're creating a gate. And they probably don't transmit the best, but at the same time, they're part of the system, so I get solid readings on both sides. I really didn't notice a problem with it. you're supposed to bury or go overhead with some cable and tie it in on both sides, and that'll keep it active, energized on both sides. Or you just do it over there. To me that was obvious. And I didn't have to dig anything up in my corduroy road and so on and so forth. So this actually just worked out perfectly. I did a double wrap so that line doesn't lose its tension. And then ultimately I just hooked those guys into a loop. It works perfect. So no issues there. These little clippies, all this stuff is cheap. You know, don't be shy to do it right, because losing an animal is way worse than spending, I don't know, $15 on pins and clips and another rod, right? Oh, I guess they're upset about something. They're gone. Weirdos. When you're in a forest line like this and you got a windstorm, you're in trouble. Get out there and walk it immediately. There'll be blowdown. They'll also root and push stuff like that up against there, which can make gaps and stuff. I've had lots of pins missing this year, animals pushing. That could be bears coming in, lots of things, figuring out what the fence line is. Those pigs after the first couple of weeks wouldn't come within 3 feet of the fence. So absolutely no issues. I think it was more curious outside animals trying to figure out how to get in and how to get out, because they're really good. Tools wise, you need a special voltmeter to be able to pick up the readings on your fence. They have troubleshooting devices. I haven't found a need for it yet. Tensioning was a huge pain in the ass, at least on this line. My hands were really sore after. But I keep like extra reels of line, splice clamps, hammer, and then fiberglass bars. Like, I could come out and fix this thing in any minute, and you should be able to, because, you know, consider the consequences if you're not. Kind of looks pretty amateur at that point. I guess some of my last points are on lodging. I told you what I spent to build this thing. I also told you I built it multi-purpose, right? I could put a front face on this and keep this as a storage shed for the rest of my life if I don't like doing pigs. So I went more into it than necessary, but ultimately 9 out of 10 times those pigs just want to be underneath. So high ground, dry ground, they'll keep each other warm. A couple hay bales on one side in the spring would have done fine, and I'm just going to add another stone underneath so that as they're bigger they can get under there. But at the end of the day, all they really need is rain cover. So you do not have to do this at all. At all. It was a lot more time and a lot more work than was needed. I don't regret it for the reasons I stated, but you don't have to do that. Oh, I leg bolted the feed bins so they don't step on it and flip it. While they're fighting for food, they'll just make a mess of things. But yeah, ultimately, when they're little, they need the warmth, they need each other, and they need something simple because they're just not that smart in the world yet. Look at this guy. I'll comment on this too. When you're booking with your abattoirs, which we didn't do in time, we missed the sweet spot. So now we've got these pigs out weeks later, which means the grain you're feeding them to growth, pound growth, is the ratio starting to slip, so your profitability goes away. What you really want to do is you want to find that sweet spot. So we're at a bag and a half a day with 10 pigs from May to September, all, let's say, averaging 250 pounds. That's probably fair. Maybe even a tad heavy using an average, but at the end of the day, it is working. And they've been rooting, so that'll play a part too. Like, they've destroyed everything, and that one's peeing in his bath puddle, just so you know. So don't expect them to be too bright, but they can be funny. Getting them out of here is my one concern. I'll amend this video later, showing you what I've done to basically, I'm going to splice pallets together and make a small cage. I'm going to leave them hungry and then bait them into that container with the tractor and the food to get them out to my transport unit. I don't have a corral set up to push, and I also don't have a lot of hands to push. I've got 3 girls and a wife who's busy, so I got to find a way to do things on my own. You might be like that too. So a little bit of starvation goes a long way at this stage. I'll let you know how it goes later. This video is getting super long, way longer than I want it to be. I think the information's valid. I tried to keep it quick and concise. I hope you value it. Around here, pork's $5 per pound on average. So we're looking at, oh, I don't know, 10 grand in pork sales. Our food consumption, abattoir, purchasing fees, everything else, tags, all the operating costs, okay, that we did put us at a profit of $4,000. Okay, so if food was a little more on point, and if transportation fees and abattoir booking was a little more on point, I'm fairly confident I could get that up to $5,000. So, like, look at this guy, like, uncastrated boar, who is the ultimate beta of the pack, is under the impression that he can. Wow, it is corkscrewed. This is probably a little X-rated, and honestly a little weird to watch. Maybe you guys don't want to see this. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think we can get this down to probably $500 a head profit, which is okay. Like I said, you're looking at a rate of return on this whole setup of 2 years. Actually, just under. So, I mean, really, as an investment, that doesn't stand very poorly at all. So, okay, we'll catch you guys later with the next portion of this and transporting them.